Hey, insurance agents, when you pick up that phone, are you worried that it's going to sound a little bit like this? Mildred, hey, what's up? This is David Duford. I'm calling you about that life insurance information you requested.
Honey, I'm broke. I don't get my Social Security check until the 3rd of the month, and this is just the 4th of the month, and I'm broke. I'm broke. I barely have enough money for cigarettes and Busch Light and a couple dollar cheeseburgers from McDonald's.
Okay, Mildred, have a great day. Hey, Dave Duford here at Duford Insurance Group, and if you are worried you are not executing in a big way, in a relentless way, on your dial days as an insurance agent, chances are you're not going to fare very well in this business. And if you're looking for advice and counsel on how to avoid that situation we just saw, and how to dominate on your insurance sales dial days, and this video is for you, I'm going to go through my 10 methods, my 10 tricks, tips that will help you get more out of every single dial day so that you make more appointments and hopefully sell more insurance. So again, my name is David Duford. I own Duford Insurance Group, where I train and recruit agents nationally to sell final expense Medicare and annuities, both face-to-face and over the phone. If you're interested in learning how my agency works to see if you're a good fit, go to davidduford.com/FAQ to learn more. And also make sure you subscribe and hit the like button if you enjoy this kind of content. Okay, so let's go through my 10 foolproof tips to dominate as an insurance agent on dial day. And the number one tip here is to eliminate distractions. Most of you are probably working out of the comfort of your home office. Again, the post-COVID world, I guess we could say, has caused people to now more work in a virtual capacity, not in the typical office capacity, which for some has been great, but for others has been a giant distraction. Take it from me, I've been doing insurance sales from home since 2011 and ran my agency since 2013 from home. And just because you're home doesn't mean it's devoid of distractions. In many cases, it's actually very much more distracting. How do I mean by that? Well, first of all, like, I live in a house that has 4 kids under the age of 12, a wife that stays at home and does homeschool with them, and I constantly hear them moaning and whining, and I've got my little 3.5-year-old who I love so much, who likes to have tantrums here and there, and all of that can have a distracting effect, to say the least, on your absolute performance on the phone. And maybe if some of you don't have as many kids as I do, perhaps you are in front of your computer, as many of us are when we set appointments, and you're distracted by the social medias and all the other things of the world, the news that's out there, etc. You've got to eliminate these distractions as best as possible if you want to optimize your success. You see, nobody who is like sane likes to pick up the phone and call. There's always going to be that kind of nervousness and that kind of unconscious desire for distractions to get you away from the pain. We call this avoidance behavior. And when you are in an environment with distractions like what's mentioned previously, your unconscious is going to draw you towards that. So it's really important that if you have this kind of in your face, that you set firm boundaries with your family. Let them know that when you're in your workspace, you are not to be distracted. Make sure that you cut out social media. Maybe that means you got to get rid of your phone and use another phone that doesn't have accessibility to the internet. Whatever it takes to stay totally focused and dialed in on dial days is absolutely imperative. And again, this is basic stuff, but it cannot be dismissed, because it's so important to dial in and focus when you pick up the phone and dial, that you don't want any distractions around you, because that will get you away from your primary objective, which is to set appointments so that you can sell insurance. Number 2 on the list here is the theater of the mind. Now, what is the theater of the mind? Well, it's where we go to visualize our success and see ourselves acting in the world of being a successful appointment setting machine. It's in here where first the belief is concocted that you will see results and success when you actually take action and do it. But you have to see yourself, I believe, successful first before you can actually see the results manifested in reality. So I would take some steps every morning before sitting down on dial day and think about the things that matter. Think about yourself in the position of picking up the phone in a position of dominance. You're talking on the phone with tonality, enthusiasm. People are willingly setting appointments with you. And you're not just doing this on a one-off situation. You're doing it on a frequent, consistent basis. You need to see yourself in that mode of success to manifest it into reality. If you otherwise walk into appointments in a state of mind that's drudgery, this is frustrating, I hate picking up the phone, nobody wants to talk to me, nobody wants to talk to telemarketing, guess what mindset you bring to the table when you start dialing? That piss poor, negative mindset that doesn't result in you helping anybody. So again, influence yourself, and therefore the opinion and the perception you have in your mind of this in a positive way. See yourself being successful. By the time that you sit down to do it, you're that much closer, therefore, to being actually successful, dominating on dial day. Number 3, maximize your body language. Now, you may be wondering, well, Dave, I'm calling on the phone. What does my body language have to do with anything? Because I'm talking to somebody. I'm not seeing them in person. Well, actually, it has everything to do with your approach and ability to get success on the phone. You see, if you do enough cursory research, and I'm going to give you some bro science here, your body language is kind of the predictor to your mindset. In other words, if your body language is positive, is acting in a more authoritative way, and is upright and not placid or flaccid or limp or whatever, you're going to have a better mindset capability in your head about what it is that you're thinking about, in this case, making successful outbound dials. So I think having your body language set up in a way that's positive from the get-go is going to draw your mind forward, even if it's not so totally sold on making these calls and you're feeling nervousness, etc. If your body acts in a positive way, your mindset eventually follows. So what kind of body language tips would I give you in order to see and yield the most success out of your mindset? So first of all, consider standing up when you give phone calls. When you're dialing and you're standing up, the standing position is a position of action. It's a position of kinetic capability. In other words, it's a position where you can start running, you can start walking, you can start getting active. Whereas the seated position is a prone, passive position. It's more apt to be thought of as a neutral to negative position. You want to stand up when you dial in order to get energy in your calls. So consider standing up as a part of a way to facilitate a positive mindset. Number 2, the old classic smile and dial absolutely works. So again, how could you know if you're smiling or not? Simply put a camera in front of you like I'm doing right now and watch yourself as you record. You can also stick a mirror in front of you and look at yourself as you're talking. And think simultaneously, does this look like somebody who actually knows what they're doing? Does this look like somebody who is enthused about what it is that they're doing? Again, you'll get immediate feedback with these kind of methodologies so that you can see, do you look like somebody who your prospect would actually like to talk to? So now that we've talked about environment, we've talked about body language, talked about mindset, let's actually get into some of the scripting techniques from a fundamental standpoint that you need to employ to get the most out of every attempt that you actually get a live person on the phone. So first of all, of course, you have to nail your opening script. The opening script, in so many words, has to identify who you are, why you're calling, explain the intent of what it is you're looking to do, and then to close for an appointment. Now, a lot of you watching this are going to sell a variety of products, so what I'm going to do is give you my final expense life insurance script, but understand what's cool about it is that you can custom tailor it to whatever kind of product you're selling, so it doesn't matter if you don't sell final expense. This script absolutely works fundamentally, so just go in and change the language to the kind of product you're selling, but otherwise the script as it stands absolutely work. So here's a script you should be using when you're calling on the phone. Hey, Mrs. Jones, this is David Duford calling you back about that pink postcard you sent off in the mail requesting information on our new state-regulated final expense programs. The reason I'm calling is that it's my job to deliver the information you requested. I'm going to be in your area tomorrow and wondered if I could stop by at 10 o'clock, or does 2 work better? So again, that script, 80% of that you can keep, but maybe that references the final expense exchange for maybe mortgage protection coverage, or you change to Medicare. Again, the principle of this script is its fundamentally sound approach in how it sells the appointment and then closes and asks the client for which time they prefer. And the option is not, will you see me or not? It's what time you're going to see me. We assume you're going to see me. If you're not using a script that sounds similar to this, then you should consider changing out whatever you're using for this, because this is a fundamentally sound script that absolutely works in a variety of niches when your goal is to set an appointment to go see the prospects. So number 6 point here is that even when you have a perfect script on the opening, you're going to hear objections, and you therefore must learn how to rebut effectively. so that you can turn those objections around into people who are actually desirous of seeing you in person. So a couple of things about rebuttal script. We're going to talk about the mindset about objections and how to rebuttal them. And then we're going to actually give you the script that I teach my agents. No matter what kind of objection you're hearing, it absolutely works. So first of all, why do people object to begin with? Well, the reason being is that they're just uncomfortable with a salesperson coming over. And so much so that you can't even trust what they're saying as being gospel truth. Sometimes you'll hear things like, I'm busy, or I've already got life insurance. Well, that's not a reason not to meet you, but that's just the first thing they think of off the top of their head when you propose an appointment to meet them. So the solution when you're rebutting an objection is not to necessarily rebut what they're saying. It's to rebut the underlying emotion of fear in meeting with you and selling why it's no big deal to sit down for a few minutes to look at the options and to assure them that whatever they do with the options is up to them. So when you hear these objections, you've got to be Johnny on the spot with rebuttaling in a timely manner. As soon as you hear, I'm not interested, or I'm busy, or whatever, you immediately have to respond with the objection sequence we're about to give you. You cannot stutter and go or ah, or take a couple of seconds to say what you need to. You need to be immediate in your response and get right to the point. So here's the script that I like to teach my agents when we hear any kind of objection. No problem, Mrs. Prospect. All I need is 5 minutes to show you how this works, and whatever you do with this information is up to you. Why don't I stop by at 10 o'clock, or does 2 work better? So this rebuttal script is what we call the ask method. A means answer the objection, S means sell the appointment, and C means close. So if we go through this again, I answer the objection very simply. That's okay, Mrs. Prospect. That's the only answer you need to say. You don't need to go into a dissertation about why owning more life insurance is important, because we're not selling the product, we're selling the appointment. What they're really objecting against is the appointment, not the product. Next, we do a selling of the appointment. It's very simple. We just simply say, all I need is 5 minutes, and what you decide to do with this information is entirely up to you. So we basically tell them in so many words, there's no obligations, there's no stress. It's a quick and casual appointment. And the last thing, the most important thing, is to close. We have to ask again for the times and say, what does 10 o'clock or does 2 work better? Or how about I come by at 10, or does 2 work better? We always have to close after every rebuttal attempt, and this is the most commonly forgotten part of every type of objection rebuttal there is. So make sure that you close after you do the A and the S portion, because without the close, your client takes back over the presentation and you're less likely to get the appointment. So number 7 on the list is kind of a rehash, and I think it's really important to take time, because a lot of people think that effective objection rebuttaling and effective phone calling is all about the exact word-for-word script you say. And I would say that's about half right. That's halfway to the point. The other half is your presence on the phone, and it's your overall kind of candor, your tonality, your pacing. So it's really important to spend some time working through that and making sure that you nail that down pat. So again, some reminders on how to sound effective on the phone. First of all, I think you should have presence. You should sound upbeat. You should sound like somebody who is intrigued or interested. You should have some kind of cadence, almost in a musical fashion, of how you sound on the phone, where you have some times where you speak in a kind of an uplifted fashion, and maybe you go down like this. You don't want to sound flat and boring where, hey, my name is David Duford, I'm calling you back. It just sounds boring, especially when it's inserted with some ums and uhs. You don't sound like you're on top of things. You don't sound intriguing. You're going to turn some people off because you sound kind of like a little weird, at least in my opinion. So I think it's important to make sure that your tonality is positive. Again, more often than not, having positive tonality is going to reflect positively with more of our prospects than a neutral or certainly a negative one. Another thing you want to make sure that you're doing is make sure your pacing is on point. So you want to make sure to enunciate every single word that you say. What you don't want to do when you're doing any kind of outbound calls to set appointments is talk too fast. If you start talking like this, and you start talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and you're talking to seniors or people who have a hard time of hearing, or maybe there's stuff in the background, it begins to become difficult to comprehend all the things that you're saying. So you want to make sure that you take special attention to slow down and enunciate every single word that you're saying. Obviously, you don't want to sound like this. That's a little too much, but you want to make sure that you enunciate every word so that you're easily understood, because what you're saying over the phone, as we have seen in the past examples, what is said here is going to sound a lot different coming out of your speakerphone. So make sure you take the time to enunciate and pace accordingly so everybody can understand what you're saying. Number 8 on the list of dominating your dial day is to take strategic breaks to refocus and rejuvenate. Again, one of the unique things about what we do as insurance agents is that we are in a performance-based activity. We're not sitting at an office droning along in some, office space doing busy work. We're doing performance-based activity that requires our full focus and mindset invested. And if you overwork your capability to perform, everything suffers. Again, I liken it to what if we were playing basketball all day at high levels? I knew Michael Jordan certainly didn't do that. He put the time in, of course, on the court. But he wasn't constantly performing at top level at all times. You need strategic breaks in your day to refresh and rejuvenate, to refocus, so that you have the energy capable to put in a full day's work. So what kind of rest period should you put into your performance? I think a 10, maybe even 15-minute break every hour is a good idea. Taking a full lunch hour is also something you should consider as well, because most of you out there are dialing the entire day, and having these kind of prescribed rest periods are usually a good idea for most people. As I've discovered, most people need that time to refresh and rejuvenate. And when we're talking about a performance-based activity that's mentally draining, you need to make sure that you give yourself that time so that you can come back and refocus and get results. Number 9 on the list is strategically filling those interim periods on your breaks or throughout the day, or really throughout your business, with specific types of information that don't tear you down but lift you up. Of course, the most challenging thing about selling insurance is the mental game that it takes to sustain one's success in this business. It's not the physical capabilities. It's not like mentally hard to understand. It's hard to keep yourself focused and positive. And if you're pumping a bunch of junk in your head, like the state of the world or the news or politics or whatever, if you're constantly pumping that crap into your brain when you're in an environment where positivity is what makes the difference, that stuff on some level, more than others for sure, is going to influence you in a negative, poor performance type of way. So what should you listen to? Of course, my channel's great. Any kind of channel that talks about success, motivational stuff is always preferential. Ways that you can aspire to reach new heights. Any kind of content that focuses on that is good, where you feel good after listening to it, like you have gained something from it. My advice, guys, is just to stay away from the news, stay away from politics and other BS. Don't get involved in Facebook drama, social media drama, whatever you guys do these days. Like, that stuff is just, it's a time suck, first of all, and it's also just sucks the life out of people. It's not for us. It's not meant to be. And if you do this stuff to certain extents, it's going to have an impact on the important work that you're doing right now that you can actually make a difference in. So make sure that you spend that interim time in a thought-out way, because what you put in your mind is a reflection of who you are. And you got to make sure it's good, because it's going to come out on the other end, prospecting to our clients. And we want to make sure it's a positive mindset. Last but not least, to perform and dominate on your dial days as an insurance agent is to make sure that you're relentlessly repeating all of this process all day long until you book all of your appointments and relentlessly stick to the program. And I did actually forget early on another point that's kind of built in with this. So this kind of gives us 10, right? It's to set the dial goal that you have and then live up to your word. This is very important, guys. This is a goal-based business as well as it is a mindset-based business. And if you let yourself short of the goals that you promised, you're not a man of commitment. You want to be a person of commitment, man or woman of commitment. If you say you're going to do something, you should be aspiring to living up to the things that you say you're going to do. There's nothing that I think that's had a more profound effect on my business throughout the 10 plus years I've been in insurance than I've actually done what I said I'm going to do. And people say that all the time, but they don't necessarily execute that overall throughout life. And again, I'm not trying to pat myself on the back too much here, but I think that if you follow through what you say is important and you actually say what you're going to do and then do it, people take notice of that. And you also have a higher sense of self-worth when you're a man or a woman of action that lives up to the value statements that you profess to have. When you do the things that you promise and set out to do and relentlessly accomplish those goals again and again and again, you elevate your own sense of self-worth. And so again, these kind of big meta pictures of how you view yourself all start from minor issues early on. Can you keep little commitments? Because little commitments kept lead up to big commitments kept. And if you can't even keep your commitment to hitting 100 dials a day or 150 dials or whatever your numbers are, then you're probably not good at keeping the bigger commitments. So make sure that you keep your promises to yourself, because that is the first step to a business mindset to where people take notice of you and want to do business with you because you're a person of integrity. So with that said, bottom line, guys, the magic in this business and being relentless and getting success on the phone, getting success in the business of insurance sales is taking the fundamentals and relentlessly doing them over and over again over time. There's plenty, I like to say, and we say this kind of us who've been around in the business a long time, you know, the graveyard of failed final expense agents are full of people who had great months in the business but couldn't consistently execute over the long haul. And what you don't want to do is get entrapped in some kind of mentality where you got to have the secret sauce or the magic approach, and that's what's going to make the difference. Does it help? Sure, to have a good fundamentals approach. But what really makes the difference for those people who succeed and make this a lucrative career are the people who take the kind of training that we talked about today and mercilessly and consistently execute on the strategy without relent, without end. And it's those people that survive the vicious cycle of failure in this business and come out ahead and financially very successful. So I hope this training helps you out with dominating your dial days and getting more appointments so you can help more people. If you have any questions about making phone calls or some content or issues I've brought up that you'd like me to further elaborate on, just please leave a comment in the chat. Happy to help you. And thanks so much as always for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.